Hey guys, this is Tiffany again, coming back for Stranger Things 2, and this is Chapter 2 of the second season, called Trick or Treat Freak. So, I mean, so far, these episodes, I loved season 1, but now we're getting answers to all these questions we've had, and this actually picks up right after the end of season 1. So after 11 gets rid of the Demogorgon and vanishes, she's all in the Upside Down. So now we know what happened to her. Like, obviously, Mike and everybody thought she had vanished, but in reality, she just, after the Demogorgon was defeated, she went into the Upside Down somehow, and woke up in the Upside Down, and she's still in the school, just obviously in the other plane, and she starts yelling for Mike and obviously can't find him, and she walks around and finally sees an opening in the school wall that she can hear what sounds like police officers, maybe SWAT team, not really sure, coming through and panning for, I guess, threats or whatever. So she makes this opening that's already there wider using her mind, and crumbles it down. She's already got the blood still from the fight with the Demogorgon, but now she's creating a bigger hole so she has more of an opening to cross over into the, our world, I guess, as opposed to the Upside Down. So, and so she's in the school. It doesn't really seem like anyone's there. Maybe those officers are still there. We don't really know. But that's where it starts. And you see it goes to Mike at home after this ordeal, and he's kind of like in a blanket and being questioned by these officers, as well as everyone else, I'm assuming. Like asking him where 11 is and asking him what happened, and he truly doesn't know what happened to her because she just ninja vanished, but at the same time he actually says, I wouldn't tell you where she was even if I knew, because obviously she's always going to be a part of his heart, his friend, and someone he really cares about, so he would never betray her. So but she actually goes to his house, and you see her looking at him through the window, and he like stares at her, and the officers notice, so they have to of course do a search around the house, stake out a perimeter almost of just trying to see what he was staring at, because of course they rightly assume he may have seen her. So but yeah, you go back to 11, of course, with Hopper, and it shows her now where she is and living with him, and she's in a sheet with like these eye holes cut out, and she's like, "Ghost!" and scares the heck out of him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And she basically says she wants to go trick-or-treating, and is very much very passionate about this. She wants to get out. She's been cooped up. There's so many rules that she can't get out, which we'll get to, but she really wants to go trick-or-treating because she can wear a mask and a costume. No one would know who she is, but obviously Hopper knows if she gets out, she would try to make contact, at least with Mike and maybe with the rest of the group as well. So he doesn't even want to chance that, because obviously that would be detrimental to her and him. So he tells her no. Instead, he offers to get like a huge thing of candy, and they'll have a big Eggo dinner and lots of awesome stuff, and they can watch a scary movie, and he offers it as a compromise. And when she is confused on that word, he basically tells her it means you're meeting someone halfway, so you're kind of halfway happy. And so I thought that's an interesting way to put that. You're halfway happy, but she kind of grudgingly accepts it, and then it goes back to Will. And it's like you see Joyce and Jonathan, and you're having like this deja vu flashback of season 1, because Joyce is trying to get stuff done in the morning. Jonathan's getting ready for school, and she can't find Will. So, of course, she freaks out again, because where's Will? Obviously, after what happened with season 1, she, of course, assumes the worst. But luckily, he just happens to be in the bathroom, and, everything's okay. So, it just kind of brought back that, kind of scare factor that was in season 1, because you don't know where he is. So, and then, of course, he's wanting to wear his Ghostbuster outfit for school, which is so cool. I mean, it looks identical, rightly so, to the movie and to the costumes that were in the 80s, of course. And he's got everything. He's got the attachments, the proton pack, everything's there. And of course, she sees a drawing as he's in his room of the Thessal Hydra, and she's like, what is this? And he tells her a story that, oh, this is for something I'm writing about, like a story I'm doing, and nothing important, but she obviously kind of knows better, but she lets it go, obviously. And of course, it goes right into the Ghostbuster theme song, which I'm sure the rest of you, like I was, were geeking out about that. And it's got all of them, we see all 4 of them, Mike and Will and Lucas and Dustin. They're all 4 wearing these awesome Ghostbuster costumes. And they're ready to go into school. They think they're cool and ready, and like they're going to outshine their classmates. Well, they get to school and no one else is wearing a costume. Oh boy, to be in that kind of a scenario, I can't even imagine. I know nowadays, kids will definitely go to school in costume, and even on normal days, they may go with like a cape, or, maybe in a tutu, or any number of things that are more costumey. But apparently, back then it wasn't as cool to be nerdy and geeky about stuff. So, everybody's looking at them like, oh, you're really freaks because you're wearing Halloween costumes to school. But, I mean, part of them is happy that they're, wearing this, but the other part of them are like, oh, man, now we're going to get made fun of even more. So it's kind of like a weird line there. But I really liked them. I thought they were really cool. I would be their friend, obviously. But then, of course, it goes back to Joyce, as she was afraid of. She's talking to Hopper about that art. And this is where it confirms, like I said in the previous video, it's almost been a year, because they talk about how it's coming in on a year. Should he really be having PTSD, which is what they think this is, after a year almost of time and doing this artwork that obviously scares her into thinking he hasn't gotten over it, which, of course, I mean, after going through something like that, who would get over it that quickly? I can't imagine. But obviously, he's still very affected by it. But I mean, what can you say? And of course, they go back to the facility, whereas the control panel had messed up. They are able to fix it, and everything seems to be operational. We'll see how long that lasts. And here we go. It goes back to Nancy and Steve. And Nancy's still very, very upset about Barb. She's having a lot of guilt issues, a major guilt trip, because like she feels like she's to blame, because she's, the one that told Barb to leave in season 1 when she wanted to stay at Steve's place, So she's really kind of dealing with her own, guilt and just this soul-crushing weight on her shoulders. And I don't really think Steve understands as much as she wants him to, obviously, because, I mean, I don't know if he can quite imagine what that truly feels like, but Nancy definitely is feeling it hardcore, and she can't really let things, pretend like everything's normal, everything's fine, because to her nothing is okay. So she's in the library and she thinks she sees the back of Barb's head, and She's having like flashbacks to the party when she told Barb to leave, and she obviously met the Demogorgon, and it's really, really tough for her. So, and we'll obviously see more of that later. Then Dustin and Lucas are trying their best to kind of talk to Max, because Max is obviously like that loner type that's really cool that they want to be friends with, because they know she's a fellow nerd after realizing she's Mad Max. And they really want to talk to her, but of course they were both like, what should we say? How do we approach her? So they finally get up the courage and they talk to her, and they are talking about how cool it would be to go trick-or-treating with them and how she should join them. And she's like, well, that's mighty presumptuous of you. And Dustin's like, presumptuous? Is that a good thing? You know, so he's pestering Lucas about, what does that mean? It's good, right? You know, because, you know, sweet Dustin, he doesn't really realize what's going on. So, you know, and then, of course, we go back. The way this, you know, moves around as opposed to other stories between different characters, I actually like it because you're able to keep up with it more than most of your series. So as it goes from like Will to Joyce to Hopper to Eleven to all these different people, it does make it does keep continuing to be cohesive. So I really do like that in the series. Like when it goes back to 11, she's changing the TV channel with her mind and Terminator's on, and which is very amusing. But at the same time, I think everybody has different things that they're dealing with this season after everything that happened with season 1, because she's reflecting on what happened after she left after she got out of the Upside Down, came back to the real world, and she's out in the woods, like she's, you know, in survival mode, trying to support herself. So it shows her like killing a squirrel, like she's actually looking out the window and sees a squirrel on like the porch, and it makes her have like this flashback to when she had to kill a squirrel to eat, and she's roasting it over the fire that she's made, and a hunter comes up on her, and she basically uses her mind to throw him so far that he's kind of knocked out or, you know, winded enough where she's able to take his jacket and his trapper hat and put it on herself to stay warm in this harsh winter that she's dealing with. And she just runs away, and you know, of course, we go back to Hopper and these dead crops, specifically the dead pumpkins. And the guy's accusing Merrill of poisoning his farm because he has like a competing pumpkin patch that's, you know, very, very popular around Halloween and this time of year. But as we find out, there are dead crops everywhere. And of course, this is starting to spook Hopper because, I mean, there doesn't seem to be just, it's not poison. There's something far worse going on here. And with everything that's going on with Will and everything, obviously Hopper knows about the lab facility. I mean, he's got a lot of suspicion here. But, and of course, Wango Tango comes on. It's basically Billy and Max in the car, and they're arguing as always. Like, they don't really seem to have a good relationship. There's something about Max's brother, that Billy, that just seems off to me. Like, I don't know if he's one of the 11, if what's going on here, but there's something abnormal about him. I can't put my finger on it, but he's very cocky. He has gifts with athleticism, with a lot of different things that most people don't have. So there's something unusual about that. I can't quite say what. I mean, even she is very gifted with like gaming, obviously, like with Dig Dug. So I don't really know what it is, but I'm sure we'll probably find out soon. But basically, he says, you know whose fault it is that we are stuck here, right? Because he hates it. He hates being here. He kind of sees it as like a podunk town, you know. And he is not thrilled at all to be stuck here. And she's like, you know, kind of mutters, oh, yours, you know, it's your fault. But, of course, he gets mad and he's like, say it's your fault. And so he starts revving his car, like, and they start going very fast. And of course, she sees off in the distance Dustin, Will, and I think Lucas are the three that she sees pedaling on their bikes coming towards them. So, and she obviously realizes that they are possibly going to run over them if they don't, you know, slow down or move or something. So, I mean, it's getting worse. He's accelerating, and finally, right when they're about to hit the boys, she grabs the wheel and swerves out of the way, and luckily no one's harmed. They just kind of, you know, run off the road with their bikes a little bit. They realize it's her, but I mean, they don't, nothing really gets said about it, but you know, the fact that he would endanger obviously their lives as well as the, you know, Will and Dustin and Lucas and whatnot, it's, I mean, he obviously doesn't care. I don't really know what his issue is, but you know. And so here we go with Hopper. He's realized by now it's the dead crops. He's making connections, and more and more, I think, is this... Yeah, I mean, he's starting to set up flags around the perimeter of how far reaching this is, like back into the trees even. And he's setting up marker flags to kind of set off an area, like a radius of where this thing has impacted nature. So it's kind of starting to become more and more apparent that this is a major issue. But of course it goes back to Bob. He's Dracula for Halloween, which is kind of funny. He's playing Islands in the Stream because him being a huge Kenny Rogers fan, of course, he's going to listen to Islands in the Stream with Dolly Parton and with Kenny Rogers. So, you know, he's got a video camera, which actually comes into play later. So we'll see more of that. And I mean, all the music yet again is so awesome because it immediately goes to Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue, At Tina's Party. You know, they're doing keg stands. And whereas Steve used to be kind of like the head guy that, you know, was the keg stand king and kind of like the guy that was envied, now it's Billy, and he can do these crazy keg stands and yet again show that he's more gifted than your traditional guy, I guess. So I mean, he's partying and being wild and crazy, and it just kind of shows how Steve and Nancy are there together, and she's determined to get drunk. Like, she's at the punch bowl. She is like obviously taking it like it's a, you know, a shot. Obviously it's spiked, and she's, you know, ready to just get smashed. And I mean, it's obvious she's upset about everything, and she just doesn't, you know, she doesn't want to face it, I guess, anymore. So she's just drinking away her sorrows in a very bad way. So, but yeah, of course it's a little scary to see, but that comes into play later. But yeah, so Will and Lucas and Mike and Dustin, they're all going trick-or-treating, you know, obviously hitting up all these houses, and they run into Max, dressed as Jason, who scares the heck out of them. And they're, you know, so they decide to join up together because, you know, they're going to go to the kind of rich neighborhood so they can get better candy. Will is really excited, and so is Dustin and Lucas, but Mike is very upset because obviously these guys gave him a horrendous time when he wanted to add 11 to the party, yet they're so quick to accept Max. So I feel like in a way he doesn't like that they're so accepting. He doesn't want another girl in the party except 11. Like, he feels like that's her spot and that's being taken or stolen by someone that he hasn't approved of. And, you know, he's very, very upset about it. But all of a sudden, of course, you know, Will gets assaulted almost by these guys that are in costume, older, obviously, maybe high school teenagers or something like that, that push him down on the ground as they go past and call him Zombie Boy. And he kind of, it scares him a little bit, and here we go again. He flashes to the Upside Down, and he sees the Thessal Hydra rise up out of the ground, and it's chasing him like it's, you know, it's, I don't even know what to call them, like vectors. I don't know what the technical term for them would be, but they're trying to come after him, and he's, you know, crouching behind a wall, and it's yet again like it was in season 1, where he's trying to, you know, hide from this monster, and he's freaking out, and finally Mike yet again snaps him back to reality, and you can tell that he is just mindless with terror. So, you know, Mike realizes he needs to take him home. So he's like, you know what, you guys are having so much fun with Max, why don't you keep trick-or-treating with her? I'm going to take Will home. So, you know, he obviously gets away from there with Will and takes him, you know, back home where obviously he needs to be right now. So, I mean, obviously there's some sort of weird connection that, you know, Will still has with the Upside Down. So it goes back to the party. Jonathan shows up. And, of course, he's going in, not in costume, but, you know, that's Jonathan for you. And Nancy, at this point, is completely messed up. She is beyond drunk. And she doesn't care about anything. Like, you know, she's dancing with Steve at the party when Jonathan walks in, and she goes back to the punch bowl to get more, and Steve's actually trying to be a good person and stop her, like, hey, you know, calm down, back off the punch, you know, you need to kind of take a step back for a minute, trying to be that, you know, I think we've all been that friend at one point when someone's gone a little far, we're like, you're good, you don't need any more to drink. He's trying to be that person, but she's not having it. She's like, no, leave me alone. Like, you feel like this, she's, you know, kind of taking it out on him in a way. Like, she's like, get away from me. She's like scooping up punch and like drinking a little bit. So they get in a scuffle where he's trying to get the drink away from her, and it ends up spilling on her. So she goes to the bathroom and like is very angrily taking this washcloth and like wiping herself off when Steve comes in, and like they're talking, and basically they have a fight, and it's like, you know, she basically says everything is bullshit, you know, the fact that you want to act like everything's okay when it's not okay, everything about Barb, us not being able to tell her parents, everything is bullshit. And she says, you're bullshit to Steve. Like, she tells him that he's bullshit, and in her drunken stupor says that they're pretending to love each other. Pretending. And Steve, of course, catches on to that. He's like, wait, hold up, you don't love me? So, I mean, he's obviously very shaken by that. She's angry, she's drunk. So, you know, but he takes it very seriously and leaves her at the party. So he walks off, you know, slams the door and leaves. And she continues angrily scrubbing her sweater. But yeah, that's, of course, very... I guess it was only a matter of time. I mean, you kind of feel like, obviously, they've grown apart since, you know, obviously she's bonded more with Jonathan. I mean, they've been hot and heavy in a physical way, but not... I feel like not, like, chemically, maybe, her and Steve. So now it's coming back big time. And Mike... I mean, he's talking about 11 and how he feels about her, and it's just, you know, he really is at this stage with where he doesn't want anyone else to come in, and he's talking to Will. He's like, look, like, just like you are having these issues, you know, where you're scared, I'm scared, because like I can't, like, I feel like she's out there somewhere, you know, like he admits to trying to contact her, like all this stuff. And you know, obviously he finally admits that he doesn't like the fact that Max is trying to join the party without his okay, because you know, obviously they, you know, you're the paladin, you're the ranger, you're like all these D&D characters, you know. He's like, she has no place, 11's the mage, you know. But yeah, he's obviously not happy about it. And we see Jonathan finally takes Nancy home, puts her to bed, you know, and he seems to linger a bit, like he's tempted to, like, you know, kiss her or something, but obviously she's drunk, so he does, you know, the gentlemanly thing and leaves after she's, you know, good to go and in bed. And after a very, very late night, we are back with Hopper. He, after all those promises to 11, he's still out looking at these crops. He, you know, is like in the middle of the night and at this point, and he realizes what time it is, and he's like, oh crap, because he, you know, remembers he promised 11. And 11, as we know, is one of those people, she takes promises very seriously, because that iconic quote, friends don't lie, you know. So he finally rushes home. She's mad, will not open the door at first. Finally, she opens the door, but she's locked, I guess, in her room watching TV. And he's like, well, fine, I guess I'll just stay out here and eat this candy by myself, you know. So while she's in her room, she blindfolds herself, and I guess by blindfolding herself she can go into like that same state as the sensory deprivation tank gave her, and she goes into like that black field where, you know, she can see like different scenes at different places, and she's focused on Mike, and she hears him talking to her on the radio, and you know, saying he needs her, that he wants to talk to her and has so much to tell her. And obviously she's very affected. She, you know, misses him too and wants to know what's going on and catch up, but obviously she can't. And the episode actually ends with Dustin finally confronting his garbage can, because as we saw last episode, something weird's going on in it, and he opens it, sees something, and is shocked. And we don't quite know what it is, but we know that he doesn't seem scared, more amazed. So hopefully we'll see what that is and keep going from here. So, but yeah, that was this episode. It was called Trick or Treat Freak, and I definitely enjoyed it. Love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday, I guess you could call it. So really excited to see costumes and still have that awesome 80s, you know, retro nostalgia flashback stuff going on. Like we saw E.T. this episode, and lots of different things. Like we've seen Annie and Strawberry Shortcake, and I think we saw Conan at one point. There's just a lot of different, like, in the backdrop and background little characters that kind of pop up to let you know it's the 80s. So really excited to see that, and I'm really excited to see more with Stranger Things. So, but yeah, definitely, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We definitely are doing more reviews of Stranger Things and Star Trek Discovery, The Orville, Doctor Who when it comes back. We're doing Walking Dead currently, and Game of Thrones when it starts back. So we also do unboxings of Loot Crate, Loot Anime, and Scotchbox Japanese Snacks, Owl Crate. I'm actually getting Fandom of the Month, which is coming shortly, as well as Anime Bento. And we're going to be doing some gaming streams and a lot more. We've got Destiny 2 giveaway going on right now, so if you haven't already, check out that video so you can possibly win your own copy. And it gives you all the instructions on how to win. So if you want to be a part of that, and if you just like content like this, reviews, or want to give your 2 cents on the show, definitely subscribe. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Nerdettes. And I appreciate you guys watching and hope to see you back. Bye, guys.